meeting to order, or turn it on and then I'll call it to order.
Now you're good.
All right. So we're calling the Historic Preservation Commission regular meeting to order. This is Monday, April 13th at 2 p.m. The roll call show that we are all here. Annie's awesome and live. So with that, I will entertain an approval for a meeting agenda.
I move to approve meeting agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, so we'll follow this agenda. And then next item will be approving the minutes. Now, I have a couple corrections. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read, if they have.
Say what yours were,
Okay,
because I think I did.
one was under 4A, board resignation, talked about Ann Aslan, who is also here in an unofficial capacity because she won't be approved until the council meeting tomorrow. But it says here that Commissioner Major reported Ann Aslan is possibly interested, and she previously served on the board. She wasn't an official on the board, so she
She was an official visitor.
official visitor. So we could just adjust that to say that. Yeah. And then the second one was J under cultural survey discussion. I just wanted to make sure that we have Michelle, our guest speaker today, her title correctly. We gave you a promotion in our minutes.
Thank you.
We said that you were the director of the State Department of Historic Preservation.
I am glad that that is not true. Thanks.
That is not true. So we can correct that to say that Michelle is the CLG program coordinator?
Yes,
Is
that's,
that
yep, that's it.
of the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation for the state. So, other corrections?
I think that was it.
Did you, okay, so you saw the same things. And
I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second
Second.
it.
second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved with those amendments. All right. So with that said, I'd like to introduce to you Michelle Thompson of the CLG program for the state. We did talk at our last meeting about maybe having you come a little bit later.
Yeah.
That's when I thought that the grant round was in the fall. And
Yep.
but then she corrected and said, no, the any CLG grants for 2027 fiscal year, the deadline will be the end of May.
No, we just moved to the end of June. No,
End
just
of
so you
June.
know, cause I just get to make those decisions, so I decided to make it later. So just so you know, yes. And they just opened. Did you all
Yes,
see that?
Yes, I
did,
saw
okay.
that, but.
You did, okay, somebody saw it, good,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
So I just felt it would behoove us to have
Yeah.
Michelle come sooner than later, so that if this is something that we want to pursue funding for, at least we would know how to do it and
Yeah.
be on your radar.
Sure,
When we had Megan Duval here in January, we did talk about overlay districts.
I'm so glad you did that, yeah.
And how challenging they can be without more public support.
Yes.
And then she also suggested that, you know, maybe starting with some type of cultural survey that would take a look
Yep.
at identifying properties, neighborhoods, resources in Millwood that we can then go to try to put on the local
Yes.
register or. So that's why it's like having you come and maybe walking us through some of
Perfect.
those things,
Yep.
answering our questions.
Yep, Megan directed you perfectly. Megan is a friend of mine and a colleague, and she was in my job with the state for years. And now, right, she's the preservation officer in Spokane. She totally led you right. Out of like anybody I know, Megan's probably the best person I can think of, not even just in the area, to talk about that and to talk about districts and all of that stuff, because Spokane has done a bunch of registered districts and stuff, so she's a great resource. But just to back up a little bit, yeah, so I'm Michelle Thompson, I'm the Certified Local Government Coordinator. What that means, because I don't expect everybody to know what that means, it means that Millwood is one of about 60 communities in the state of Washington who has basically, it's like an accreditation with your Historic Preservation Commission, it's accredited by the National Park Service, which oversees historic preservation at like the federal level. So certified local government, CLG, just means that you're certified, you're like a special, part of that program. So it's the National Park Service, my office at the state, and then you all. So it's a partnership between those three things. And I'm coming to you from Cheney. I live out in Cheney, so I can come here whenever you need me to. Don't feel like, I know you said, we couldn't get you to come later. I am so happy to come out here whenever. It's totally fine. It's part of what I do. I can come back multiple times. We can walk around and look at buildings, whatever you guys want to do. I think Millwood is super cool. I'm glad you guys are a CLG. You're pretty unique for a CLG, kind of being a community within a larger community. And I know that the Valley kind of grew up around you, but you guys have such neat stuff. Megan was spot on about you guys needed to do more survey. So I was looking at, you've got a big National Register historic district. You probably all know that, right? Which, my understanding, right, that's where like the center of like the working worker houses for the mill, right? Like for the company town.
And some manager housing as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
just
okay.
off the, commercial district.
But associated with, okay, yeah,
Yes.
that's what and then you see right after you get outside of that, you start to see stuff from like the 40s and the 50s and the post-war stuff. So there's a couple things, I think. You've got some really neat stuff there too. This whole area, Spokane County has really great stuff from that era. We just bought a house in Cheney from 1953. I'm a big advocate for making sure that we're looking at that kind of stuff too. So that's the thing that you could do. You could hire, you could get a grant, and I'll help you with talking about how to apply for the grant. But you could get a grant, and what you would do with that was hire a consultant to come in that is qualified as a historic preservationist, as an architectural historian, to come in and basically do a survey of the buildings in kind of a specific kind of geographic area. Everything's kind of like your National Register historic district. It's got kind of boundary, like it kind of makes sense where the boundaries are. I was looking on some Google Street Maps and on what we have, there's kind of makes sense what the boundaries are for the more kind of post-war stuff that you have. But they would come in and basically do what we call a historic preservation inventory form for every single building in the survey area, and then write a report and talk about things like what buildings might be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, what might be eligible for the Millwood Register, which is something that I want to talk more about a little bit. Is there another district? Do you potentially have enough in that area for another National Register district, a local historic district? So that's what Megan was talking about. That totally makes sense as something you could do. Another thing you could do, and Chris talked about this a little bit, though, it's kind of hard to get that support, right? You got to get a lot of community support. There's a vote that goes on to get a district. You have a National Register district now. You could also have a local district in that same area. Spokane's done that with several things. The difference is the National Register of Historic Places is the hardest to get on, so congratulations. That means Millwood obviously that is really cool and has very cool stuff and was, great enough to get a National Register district. But it doesn't come with any overview. Like you guys don't review changes to the National Register. Well, we call that honorary. So it's basically like Cheney has our downtown is a National Register district, and it's cool. It's great. It's wonderful. You can put up signs and, it's great to help with planning and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't do much in terms of you all being able to oversee changes. If you wanted to pursue a local register district, that would give you the opportunity to at least lay eyes on changes to those buildings. But again, you got to get community support. I'm not sure what it says in your ordinance. They're all a little bit different, or even that you even have the language yet for a potential local register district. You'd want to have something. I know Spokane has stuff in their ordinance, I think, that points to their bylaws. It talks about their process for a local register district. So it's like, is it a simple majority? Is it 50% plus one? It's a vote. Because that's when you have people, this is the only time where you're gonna have people who voted no to be reviewed, right? That are gonna be reviewed, because we're not gonna get 100% of people in a local register district. so it's harder. But, you know, in some places, Spokane, I mean, Megan just, there's no place in the state has done as many as Spokane. Megan is just a genius at getting these through, so it's possible to do. I mean, it takes a lot of catching flies with honey and, you know, knowing how to talk to people, and I can help you with that. And Megan, you've talked to Megan about that, right? You know, when people are, you already have the National Register District with the housing for the mill. Just talking to people about what that means, you know, right? We want to make sure that we've got some extra protections. People, I think by and large, probably buy those houses and live in those houses because they're beautiful and they want them to stay beautiful. And I mean, we get local districts all the time, but you guys know your community better than I do, you know, that it's possible you could have support. So those are just things to think about. But yeah, you could do more survey, and I definitely think you need to. If you look at, we've got a big database called Wizard. I'll send you follow-up links and stuff too, so you guys can check this out. But it's called Wizard, and it basically is just anytime we can get any information about a potential historic building, like anything that's over 50 years old, we try to get one of those historic preservation inventory forms. So there's like an entry. And sometimes we have a ton of stuff, like we've got all your National Register nominate, you know, all of that information is there. So there's a ton of stuff. But then the kind of that post-war stuff around the district, there's, if you end up looking at Wizard, there's a bunch of yellow dots, which means we've got an entry, but we don't necessarily even have photographs. No, but I didn't look at them all, but I was looking to see like what kind of information. So much of it is just, we know that there's something over 50 years old there. We don't have a photo. It's never been formally evaluated to see if it's eligible for a register, if there's a potential district there. The local districts are easier to get. On one level, they're a bit easier to get, not in terms of public, like you still want to have your public support, right? But in terms of like the National Register District, the buildings need to be really intact. And that's just preservation. It's not perfect. I mean, that's just preservation. We call it integrity, right? Like it's got most of its original parts. And so you know that from that neighborhood. That's why it was able to get on the National Register. Not only does it meet the criteria for the age, it's got importance, right? It's significant, but it's like if somebody from that time period walked in, they would know where they were. And so, you know, we want to make sure that stuff has enough of that integrity, enough of what's intact. And so getting it on your local register, you've got some more kind of leeway with that. So sometimes, like Kennewick had a grant the last 2 years ago to do a survey to see if they could do a National Register District downtown. And it was determined that they didn't have enough intact. And so now they're like, okay, well then what else can we do? Maybe we can do a local district. You know, because you guys have more kind of leeway in your ordinance to be like, okay, you know, we can make this, maybe we can make the argument for a local district. Sometimes communities will do what's called like just like an overlay district. So it's more about like, this is more kind of stuff that's used more for like downtowns, commercial. And I know you've got a commercial area, but kind of setbacks and the way that windows, you know, are at heights and that kind of stuff. So at least keeping some of the character without as much like looking at like, we're not looking at paint colors for that kind of stuff. So there's lots of stuff you can do. You just kind of think about, you know, what is your community interested in? Do they want more like protection? Do they want?
Well, we hope so, but we
Yeah.
haven't.
You have, right.
We're having a little bit of
Yeah.
identity too, is just to raise the
Yeah.
profile of the Preservation Commission. I think one thing that's going to help drastically, and I noticed from your job title
Yeah.
that you will be involved in this too. We are now an affiliate Main
I
Street
saw that.
program.
Congratulations.
And we've
That's
got a
wonderful.
couple of our board
Yeah.
members on the Main Street committees.
Have you met with Brianne Durham?
Yeah,
That
she
she's the
came.
director. Okay, yeah. She lives in Spokane. Main Street is I think I sent this to you. Main Street is actually a program of where I work. We contracted out to the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. So the other part of my title is I'm the Main Street Design Specialist. So I work with the Main Street crew all the time, and I help doing, you know, like with your down to your commercial core. how do we look at bringing back a commercial building, to kind of give it more of its kind of historic design, that kind of stuff. So I look at it through, because I have a design background and a preservation background. So how do we kind of look at how we might do some of that stuff to get a little bit more of the historic character back, or like what's a, so I can do that stuff. So if you guys are an affiliate, and if and when you become a full Main Street, I am totally here to work with you on that kind of stuff too, so, yeah.
Well, I do know that we want to have a little bit more say over changes in our historic district. And we've, especially Annie's worked really hard to put together a resource guide that's on our website, and
I've seen it.
that
That's
would,
great.
help direct people to the right, I guess, research for the property. Not exactly the Secretary of Interior standards, but at least there's guidelines for doing any changes to the property. And we want people to know and go to those and follow. I mean, it's all connected, but
And what Spokane does is, I think they require it when they have a local district, when they get a local district. Seattle does this, I think Seattle does this too, but I know Spokane does. They require design guidelines specifically for that district, and it sounds like that's
we've
something
got
you
the
guys,
design guidelines. So
which
we just need to
but then you can,
do the next
yeah,
step.
then you can like apply them in a more formal way, than just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And it depends too. I don't know. I assume that you guys have, there's the, what is it called? The advisory or the quasi judicial. So like you can either advise people on changes, or can you actually deny changes? Do you know if it's on a local?
We can do it for local, for members of our local register.
For a local, you can. Okay,
Right.
okay.
So right now we have 2 properties on the local
Okay.
register. So if they were to come with any request to change,
Okay.
it would trigger going through us. But the historic district, the National Register
Yes.
district, of course, there's nothing in place.
And sometimes people are, kind of disappointed about it that live in the neighborhood too. I know Olympia was going through this, and I used to live in the Capital District in Olympia, and they were their National Register district, and they were, this is public knowledge, but they were reviewing changes to the National Register. The Preservation Commission was doing this for a long time, not understanding their ordinance, and I caught it, and I was like, you guys can't be doing this. So we talked to the Attorney General, and all of this stuff, just to get it really clear. And, and everybody was like, well, we thought we had all this protection. And there's like, this is a neighborhood I grew up in. Like, I want you to have that protection, but I want you to have it right.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of stuff now, a lot of House bills and stuff that will, they will have an exception for like a local registered, like there's some rule about something, but it's like, unless it's in a local registered district created with an ordinance that was approved by the Secretary of the Interior, which means a CLG. So you want to make sure now, if you've got, and you know that already, you can't review National Register, but it's becoming more and more important to have those. And sometimes, people find out that the commission doesn't have the authority to stop changes. And in Vancouver, down in Vancouver, Washington, a few years ago, it's a big thing that they lost a historic building, and people were so upset because it's on the National Register. And they thought, oh, it's on the National Register, it's protected. And I hear that all the time. It's like one of the biggest misconceptions about historic preservation, right? That the National Register is one and done, and that's just like not true. So.
When you see a big hole in the White House, it's pretty hard to.
Yes. And now they're suing.
Yeah,
Now the National Trust is
Late.
like.
Yeah, got in there late.
It's gone now.
Too bad.
But even the most important places in the United States that are on the National Register of Historic Places, they're protected because somebody cares to protect them. The National Register is not doing that on its face. There's not, and people find that out all the time. And some people are like, yes, that's great, because they don't want that to happen. But a lot of people are very sad about that and think, we wish that there were more protections. Well, there can be. And we're lucky in Washington State that we have the ability that our CLGs have the ability to review changes to things listed on a local register. That's not true of every state. So we've got our state guidelines allow us to do it. So it's like that's where protection is for historic buildings as a local register. And it's funny because, you know, people hear the National Register and it's this fancy thing. It's very hard to get on, right? But in terms of protection, that's not where it's at. It's the Millwood Register is gonna do more for protection because at least it's got, you know, eyes. You guys are looking at the changes or somebody local that's at least aware of it, or sometimes like even a demolition. I'm not sure what your demolition language looks like, but where I live out in Cheney, we have a house from 1880 that I've been working with off and on for years, and on the local register, and the guy bought it like 15 years ago and the fire department was gonna use it for practice. Gorgeous hand built home, one of the oldest homes in town, and the Preservation Commission was like, hold up, like what can we do? They moved it. The city actually paid to move the building. You know, so but it at least was like somebody had eyes on it because it was on the local register and it alerted somebody, and then there was a back and forth about what else can we do. And it worked, and it doesn't always work, but
Which I think is probably one of our goals, and
Yeah.
is to get more properties
Yeah.
on our local register or create a local district that mirrors or expands the National Register district.
getting some of your city buildings on the local register is not a bad idea too, because it's like, look, we did it. Like this building could be a candidate.
great idea.
Yeah. Colville just did that. They did a little register district, their like post office and their city hall and stuff they've got, and they just did a little local register district, but so that they can say, look, we did it.
So how old do buildings need to be on the local register?
50.
So that would, all of the buildings built until 76 would.
Yeah.
Which would be a majority of the
Yeah,
homes in the
totally, yeah,
district.
people forget that it's like 76 now, yeah.
And I mean, I think where some concern from the constituents is coming from is these large lots with these small homes then getting purchased, and it's not necessarily the home itself that is, you know, when it gets demolished, I don't think there's a lot of loss from a particular home, but then it's what is being built in its place and developed in its place, and it's just changing that fabric that I think people are
And
not
then
wanting to change.
Millwood, as you know, it is gone.
Right,
eventually,
so I think that's really kind of the angle that
Mhm.
that would be an appropriate angle to come at the constituents with, is like, hey, if you guys want to keep Millwood, we need to put these protections in place. It's not about like how you were saying with the, you know, attracting flies with honey kind of thing. It's
Yes.
like, we all collectively want this, and we need to tell people what we want. Like, do you want this?
Yes.
This is how we get there.
You were spot on with that, and that's what you gotta do it with honey, and the only way preservation is ever really gonna be successful is if you're able to like have those conversations with people, and they're like, oh yeah, like I feel that way too, because people stop listening when they hear historic preservation. They think that, you know, historical preservation, you know, all of that stuff, and they think that it's, you know, that you're dropping it and you can't paint your house and, you know, this kind of stuff, and then it gets really nutty. And that's why it's so important, you know, that like, you know, your ordinance and know what you can and can't do and know what your limitations are, as much as like what your, you know, what your powers are, so that you can talk to your neighbors and say, hey, it could be you in a couple years that's in my position. Like, we're all, you know, stewards of this stuff, and why do we live here? You know, it's the same reason like I live in Cheney, because it's like, I love the, like, there's historic buildings and like the character out there. It's a small town. I don't want it. I don't want those things to get demolished. And you know, and it's happening out there too. I remember in Boise, I lived in Boise for a while, and they're in National Register Historic District near downtown. It's a neighborhood. It's beautiful. And my friend posted a photo, and they demolished a beautiful old house and put up some giant, you know, that was like over the height limits and stuff. And it looks like anywhere USA, you would have no idea. Is it in Idaho? Is it in Iowa? Like, you know, and it's like, I know you know that, but yeah, just talking to people about like what makes Millwood and why do you want to live here?
And I think that's a really great way to use the affiliate program
Yeah.
through the events and through the programming to help educate and outreach within the community.
100%.
Be like, hey, you're downtown. You like downtown? You want to keep downtown?
Work together. That's why Main Street and CLG are so. And so like when I was hired like almost 5 years ago now, they took kind of different jobs and put them together. So the CLG for the Preservation Commissions and the Main Street stuff together because it's all local preservation, right? So it's like, and like Pullman is starting to do this. Pullman just became like a Main Street community. They were an affiliate, they became a Main Street community, and they're working with their CLG, and they just got funded the last cycle to do a local register district downtown. So, and went there so many times, meetings, working with people, business owners, all of this stuff. And so the business owners now in once they get the local register, right, the Preservation Commission will now have eyes on changes to their downtown that they care about, right, which is keeping that character and keeping the reason people want to come downtown. But it also opens up special tax valuation, if you guys have heard of that much, right, which is another thing that once you get a local district, that basically opens it up to anybody that's contributing to that district, and the houses too. You know, it's a bit of a tax break for people.
So they don't have to be an individual property
They,
that's listed if they're contributing to the district.
yep, they don't have, it's a
included.
way,
So-
basically, a district, another part of that is a way to just open up some of these incentives for a bunch of people at once. So if you did it in, you know, the National Register District that you have now, if you did a local register district within that, you know, same area, people doing work, you know, HVAC, roof, you know, all kinds of, the special valuation, a lot of stuff qualifies for that. People in their own homes could use that tax, you know, that tax break, which is so rare to have like something for for residential houses. Like that's just like non-existent. That's a Washington State thing. But you have to be in a local register and a CLG.
Then is there information about a local registry online that if we wanted to like produce a brochure or something?
Let me send you what Colville did, because Colville, wait, who took it? Waterville up outside of Wenatchee. I think they used Colville's. Colville has a really good one.
Okay.
Which, yeah.
They had
so
a really good Main Street program, I hear.
They
too.
do.
Yeah.
They do, totally. Yep.
Because I think that would be a really great use of funds, is to manufacture some kind of marketing material that could be used to, you know, as you're having conversations with people, be like, here, if you're interested from the tax
Yeah.
perspective or the
Yeah.
business perspective or the
Yeah.
not big gross buildings replacing small
Yes.
homes
Yes.
perspective.
Well, there's another
Totally, yeah.
aspect of that too, like, we had a community meeting about a lot down on Empire that was gonna be developed by they're gonna cram 17 mini houses on and so we all protested. So at some point, the idea of that house is 102 years old, why can't we protect it? Well, it's the owner who's to start the event, so they're like, well, how do we get our houses on the historic, so someone, I won't say who, printed out these unofficial copies of our form and handed it out at the meeting, and guess how many people we got would fill them out?
Really?
0.
Oh, even though they said that they were.
Yeah, they were interested, so because the form is kind of intimidating, so so to have somebody walk through it with them or do it for them, that's like, none of us have time to do that.
No,
you know,
and
so-
And so for, my understanding is for a local district, you wouldn't need people to fill out individual forms, you wouldn't need the
Your
property
consultant
owner.
would do it.
Yeah, you would just
Yeah.
need the majority of the
Yes.
district to say, yes,
That's
we
the
want in on
approach we
this.
take.
That's the only, so by getting, if you've got somebody that has a historic building that is like, I don't care, I'm gonna knock it down and do whatever I want to with it, with what you guys can do as a CLG, the only way to really have any kind of like eyes on that is with a local, is including that in a
Yeah.
local district,
So,
because
yeah.
you have to have owner consent. This is a new thing that just passed recently to a new state law, there has to be owner consent to be listed on a local district, or to be listed on the local register. Anything that was from before was grandfathered in, so, you know, there are people that didn't consent, but I think that was mostly only in Seattle, that you have to have owner consent, but it does give an exception to a local district. So you are still able to create local districts, and that doesn't make people thrilled all the time, and it doesn't mean you can totally prevent everything from happening. But at least when people come to the Preservation Commission and they're like, they just knocked down a 110-year-old house, like, why didn't you guys do anything? You're like, why didn't you have any, you know, like, can you help us talk to your neighbors about a local district, cause that's what would have at least given us some eyes on this, because the person that's like, no way, I wanna just knock it down, I don't care. And I wanna say this the right way, but like they're, you know, if they get outvoted in a district, then you guys have at least the opportunity to do things like I talked about in Cheney where we moved that, to at least say, are there alternatives? You know, whatever you have in your demolition, or to strengthen your demolition, what your demolition, kind of language looks like in your ordinance, that's another thing. I mean, you can do things like alternatives to demolition, basically exhaust them.
Do you think that one-on-one contact though is kind of the foundation of like going, like, because I think that's what they did with the original historic district, they went door to door to engage interest in access, so eventually everybody obviously got on board, but is that like, it's so that it's a grassroots thing and not a top-down thing?
Yes.
That's the most important.
And then-
Because, yeah,
With the local district.
yes.
Does that include people who are voting, does that include renters, or is that?
No, it's property owners.
It's property
Yeah, It's
owners.
property owners. And you can say like, you know, and sometimes, you know, it's a property owner owns 5 buildings, they get 5 votes. You wanna make sure that your ordinance has the, how that works. Spokane has good, and there's some other places too, let me give you, hold on. I'm gonna make a note to myself. You wanna make sure that it's laid out in your ordinance or pointed to in the bylaws what your process is. So is it, like, what does a non-response mean? Is it a yes, is it a no? Cause you're gonna get people that just don't even respond, right? Like, how do you, so just to make sure that you've got all that handled, so you know that before, and also then you can talk to people about it. Spokane has, I'll send you guys, I know Megan probably talked to you about this. Megan's done a couple talks on this. I've got some recordings. I think she's talked several times about how they did this in Brown's Edition, but they hired a consulting firm that basically went around, but they worked with people that lived in that neighborhood. You're gonna have people that live in the neighborhood that are like on board and like talking to their neighbors. Use, like, delegate, find the people that are already interested. You know, probably if you're thinking about, you know, the National Register district that you already have in that neighborhood doing a local district, start there, start with, you know, like you asked about that, you know, finding your allies there already and saying, okay, well, if you wanna be able to do this,
Would that be something, like say, if we, like our first step
yes.
is to do a survey, cultural survey, would a consultant, besides just looking at records and dates and everything, would part of the scope of work also include going out to neighborhoods or properties to?
Not, so, no, it would be, and so if you're talking about the National Register district that you have right now, turning it into a local district, you wouldn't need to do another survey. You've already have enough information, and so you would want to, if you thought that you wanted to do a local register district in the like historic mill, housing, what you would wanna do to make a strong application for a CLG grant is to get some support already, like make sure that you guys can say, hey, look, like we've been talking to people, we've had some public meetings, like we do have support, we think we can do this, because, and I'm not on the committee that decides for a lot of reasons who gets the grants, because the committee's gonna wanna see that there's support for it, that there's not a big effort to do a local historic district, and that there isn't any effort, and that, you know, however much money you get just kind of goes to waste and nobody wants it. So coming at the application with saying, look, we've done groundwork for this already, and talking to people about the stuff you already talked about. Hey, do you want to have eyes on the new development? Are you concerned about this? You say you're concerned about this. Like, what are the reasons you care about living here? What do you see for the future of this? You know, all of that kind of stuff. Bring them on board with that. So that would be if you wanted to do a local.
So it's almost like we would have 2 potential projects. And,
Yes.
And one would be like a cultural survey outside the district. What other?
And that's where I said like the stuff that was built right after the
Yeah,
war,
and
that would be, that's where if you wanted to do like a survey of that, then you would hire somebody to come in. And we have a list of people that have done successful jobs like that. There's some really great people in Spokane actually that do that kind of work.
Would there be any limiting factors to having the entire city, since our city is so small and so specifically defined by
No, it would be based on kind of the amount of money that we have to give. So sometimes like I know Bothell wants to they're like, we just wanna survey everything, and so they got some money locally to do some of it, cause we were like, we'll be able to give you money piecemeal, because but you guys are really small, so that's a potential too.
Yeah.
But I would look at it more in terms of a neighborhood, like a geographically connected neighborhood, all of that post World War II stuff. Because when you do a district, whether it's National Register or local, it's like, what's the story, right? Like your National Register district that you have right now, part of it is what they call the significance. So it's the story, the mill, the time period, all of that. How do these buildings visually tell the story of that? So that's.
And that story, I think, that's where, because as a newcomer into town, well, I am a newcomer. I've only been here 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. But
Yeah.
One of the surprising things to me was how many people the story of Millwood is, to me, how many people have been living here and are still here and are original owners or have been descended from original owners. And that is not something that you see in the Spokane Valley.
Those are the people that you 100% want to make sure that you're talking to, and be like, your grandparents, this is what do you care about
Like when I
protecting?
moved into my house and they were like, oh, that's Sally's house. And Sally had lived there, even though
Yep.
that's not who we bought it from, that's Sally's house. And Sally's house has a story, and this is the story of Sally's house.
Yep.
And then we learn the stories of all the other houses around us. And so that story element, I think, is one of the things that makes Millwood unique and special,
Yes.
especially in this day and age.
And then the second part of that, I mean, you had that core part of the town, and then the second, and you see this all over in different in different communities, but you even see it in Little Millwood. Then you see that kind of late 1940s, 1950s. That was the second thing to happen. So that's the second part of the story. So how does that tell the next chapter? And that's its own local or National Register district. And if it's a local district, right, and you have design guidelines, those are different than the design guidelines that you have for the oldest historic core, because they're different types of buildings. You've got all that kind of mid-century modern stuff, definitely different roof lines and windows, all that kind of stuff. That stuff is so fun. But and you know this from doing some of this work, when you do the design guidelines specifically for a community or your little commercial center, that what we're looking at is what was it historic? What are the setbacks? What do the windows look like? What are the materials? How do we keep that intact specifically for this specific neighborhood? And it's different in your different neighborhoods. But that's fun. That's super fun. And a lot of times, people don't see that mid-century stuff is so important. Spokane area has some of my husband's is from Spokane, but his grandparents had a house on the South Hill that we sold for nothing when they died. And I'm just oh my God, it's built in 1953. It's got a pool, just absolutely amazing. But these were just working class, normal people that owned places like this. And it's there's so much cool mid-century stuff in this area. And I think people they overlook it a lot. It's one of those things that gets overlooked so much. And I think partially too, because there are people that remember when it was new, right? And they're oh, that can't possibly
Right.
be right.
I think that is. I think a lot of the focus sometimes is on the buildings that are 100 years old,
Yes.
and sometimes the buildings all the houses that are in the 50s that were built. Because I would say a majority of the Millwood homes.
Yeah, there are definitely neighborhoods that all follow, that were built at the same time and follow different design standards and have
We
their
even
own
have that in
story.
Cheney, even though it's tiny. You can see the little different pockets and when this stuff was built. But yeah, I'm gonna be 50 in 2027. So I'm I can't believe anything is gonna be 50 years old. And I love all that mid-century stuff, but I know my aunts are oh my God, they grew up with it. And
it's
they're no, that stuff's horrible. And I
no, it's
our house is from the 50s. I'm it's so perfect. I love it. But Spokane has so much of that stuff. I mean, our state architectural historian, his name is Michael Hauser, you'll probably get to meet him at some point, is absolutely wonderful. And he is a diehard mid-century modern fan, and he loves Spokane. We just put the parkade on the National Register, and I mean, there's so much cool stuff here. And one of the things you guys might notice this when you look at like commercial centers. Cheney had this happen a lot. So we had buildings from like the turn of the century, right? Like 1890s to like early 1900s. In the 1950s, there was a big push for like, oh, these ugly old people thought they were old and they thought they were ugly and they thought that they were outdated. And you look at the first floor of those old buildings and you will see they had all across the country. They were remodeled in the 1950s. They've got aluminum and they changed everything because people were like, oh, like, you know, now this looks modern and we got rid of these like ugly things. But you hear people say all the time like, oh God, you know, we should just go back, you know, obviously the older stuff is the only thing that matters. But at some point, somebody thought different, right? Somebody thought, so it just shows you that tastes change and times change and not everybody just agrees that the oldest thing is the only thing that's important. But I think, you know, with your Vincent Troy stuff out, you're talking to people about that, and sometimes people don't realize that, you know, what they have is actually important, and it's just, you know, it's some everyday home that it's important. And it's important to the story of here, it's important to the story of the United States, I mean, all of that, you know, post-war stuff.
Well, we definitely have a couple things to talk
Yeah.
about as a commission and try to focus, because I would strongly suggest that we go for a grant.
Yeah.
For the end of
Yeah.
June to get funding for a consultant to do one of the things that we talked
Yes.
about
Yep.
today, and we'll discuss what our priorities are, and I think we'll have a little bit of
Perfect.
time at our May meeting to maybe hone that as well. So thank you.
Perfect. That's exactly what you should do. Discuss what your priorities are and what you think, and you guys are on the right track. I'm gonna leave cards here for some of you. I know some of you have my contact.
Thank you so
already.
much.
Thank
And
you
if
so much.
have,
Yeah.
you've got my contact.
I do.
Or if you get Bridget's,
Okay.
so you can send things to
Okay.
Bridget and then she can send it to all the commissioners, and then that saves,
Or you can just email me and I'll put your name on my, Annie's on it, you've been on it for years. You get my stuff directly.
Goddess of email.
No, but it's great because I remember like when you had, what was her name, Christina, that was at the city here, and I wasn't sure that things were getting to you, and you were actually what sparked it, Annie, with Millwood, because I was like, I don't think things are getting to the commission, so I was like, I'm just gonna email you guys directly. And so I started doing that,
That was wonderful.
yeah, so so you guys contact me directly. I am so happy to come out here and talk to you whenever. If you want me, like I said, to put your email on my list, I send all kinds of things out, and I can help you with the grant. So once you guys decide what you wanna do for the grant, just let me know. They're not that hard, and I get to make the grant, so it's pretty straightforward. I would not make it, like, it's not, when you think about like a grant, you're like, oh my God, it's really not that difficult. It's like, what do you want? How much is it gonna cost? Have you done some like groundwork for it? And then I'll help you and make sure that it's a good one. And you guys haven't gone after a grant for a really long time. Survey is always a priority for funding, so. But in a local district too, so think about it.
and it's no match this year, so we don't.
It's
have
no
to-
match, no, we don't require a match, which is great, and that's pretty rare too, so. Yeah, and I'll send you some follow-up links too, I'll send them to you, Chris, and, yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, yeah, thanks for all you guys are doing, I appreciate it. All right, and congratulations on that Main Street. That's really good.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody, thanks.
All right. All right, I know we've got about 15 minutes, though we might have to leave a little early, and leave when you need to. We'll just keep a, quorum here as we go down the list, and we can do this fairly quickly.
Yeah, cause I think I know we're not, if we could, I know, thank you. I just wanna make sure I share the quote I got for the brochures. So item 6D is the thing I have a thing to share for, so.
Why don't you go, we'll start with that.
Okay, so Minuteman Press got back to me with a estimate, and I think we had, budgeted $500 or something like that
For how many?
for 500 brochures. So it came in under budget, so it's 340 something, 340 and some change, I think. So 344. So to print 500 brochures, double-sided, full bleed, full color, gloss, folded, total cost is
Everything.
$344, yeah.
For 500, that's awesome.
So I'm not sure what the process is as far as like getting payment secured.
So I talked to the mayor about that, after our last meeting, and she says, yeah, anything, any expenses, any purchases, whether it's for signs or the brochure, needs to go through staff. So we do have a new treasurer, is that correct, Bridget, or getting a new treasurer? It's getting
that-
close.
It's getting close, yeah.
Okay, but, yeah, either the mayor or Bridget or somebody, they have P cards for that small amount, so we would have to go through them,
Okay.
and then it would just come out of our.
So
budget
should I
that way.
forward the estimate on, or?
They would even. Yeah, I think when we have the finished product ready to go to print,
Okay.
we just give them the file and you can give the bid or the estimate to them, and then they'll do due diligence, whatever they need to do, and they'll get them ordered.
Okay, I'll share the file with them as well, but I'll also probably share it directly with the printer so I can make sure that it's sent well.
And do we all get to see it?
Yeah, I think, so I don't have the update now. The only thing I need to add is a photo, and I don't think we have a photo yet. So, we had talked about maybe using one that we had in file. Did you share the file folder with me? I think,
Of which house?
well, we had talked about putting the Rosebush house on it. We just wanna make sure that we,
It looks, it's basically the same, well, it's getting painted now, so maybe.
yeah, I think we just wanna make sure we have a high resolution
Mm-hmm.
photo that prints well, that we can do large, so,
So the original nomination form also has quite a few photographs in the brochure that we used before, so it's, yeah, just making sure that's high enough res. If not, if you've got a camera,
That's what I
when
was
you're walking the neighborhood. I don't think, Vicky, we talked about getting a photo consent form, but I think Vicky and Al would just say, take a picture. It's just, I don't think that's a problem, as
Yeah,
long as we say what the house is.
Some updated photos might be nice.
yeah, cause I'm happy to coordinate getting a photo done.
But if, even the brochure, if this is something, and it, under 5 discussion item, Historic Preservation Month is May. So if we had the updated brochure in May that we could leave at City Hall, that we, if there are any events, I know the library's closed, so we can't hand them out there, but maybe at businesses that are along Argonne that could have a
Yep.
new brochure, or we,
Farmers
or
market.
the Main Street meetings, that we could share those.
Which is
So if that
until the 28th.
might be if it's possible to have that done sometime in May, that we can start distributing it, that could be a goal.
Yeah, absolutely, cause I think there was only one text question, I haven't updated the copy or anything, so I think we just had that one question about where that one quote came from. And then, yeah, I think. I would say after April 15th, I will be much more available to get things done. So I anticipate having this done by the end of the month. I can email it out to the group.
Okay, and then we could just put our eyes on it and then get it printed, and then we're good. One more thing,
Yeah.
awesome. And along with, maybe just promoting that we'll have that new brochure out, I can draft something that the mayor can put in her newsletter, also to recognize Historic Preservation Month. Is there still an electronic reader board in front of City Hall? I don't. Do we? I mean, there
think
used
so.
to be something that was blinking out there.
I'm not sure.
I'll be honest, all the times I go by, I don't
Because they
remember seeing
registered,
the reader board out
recently,
there.
yeah.
Could you
And
check on
we can
that?
ask
And if
Kyle.
so, can we maybe program
Sure,
something
just-
in May to recognize Preservation Month?
Just the other day, I think the LED display or whatever that was is switched out for an analog model, so.
like putting the letters up in a, well, we could do that too, if got enough letters. But if there are any other suggestions, ways that we can promote what we're doing for May, I know it's kind of quick turnaround, just share that by email. We already update on the new commissioners, so Anne will be officially joining us after the council accepts
Thank you.
tomorrow night. So,
Okay.
thank you. So Anne was involved not as a full commissioner because she lived outside the limits until we changed those ordinances, but it's for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
I think so.
Yeah,
Four.
oh, yeah.
And her family goes back into the history of Millwoods, so I think she's gonna be a great addition. So
Thank you.
thank you for wanting to come back.
Yeah,
You bet.
so glad.
Yep.
So the local register nomination, Alex did meet with Joseph, did a kind of a
The
review.
Maradon House. Yeah, I went through there about as thoroughly as I could to try and get an idea of just like original material construction, read the story of the house as much as possible. It's been, there had so many changes to it. I mean, there's little that's kind of like recognizable on the first floor. The basement, I'd say, is about 3/4 of the way finished out now. So, I mean, as far as assessing any of the original materials, was looking up through the basement floor and up under the siding, looking at the foundation. There were some kind of, I mean, as far as carpentry, exposed original work outside, just in like some of the corner posts and things like that. A lot of that stuff had been altered. New roof, foundation was pretty telltale. So I mean, we had a lot of insight on that thing, just as far as like original intake stuff, like plumbing, like where wiring was. Was able to figure out that it was originally like a coal heated house. It's pretty interesting, but I mean, the whole thing of it was just that it had been kind of so improved upon that it was hard to tell what the
Right, you were saying
original
vinyl
look of it
windows,
was.
metal roof and stuff like that. And I think for the local register, it's the significance of who lived there too. So there are different aspects. It could still go on the local register for other reasons,
I was trying to.
but we need to spell everything out when we do a
Right.
nomination. So
He didn't seem to have a lot of information, I mean, about previous owners or who built the house or anything like that, so it's gonna require a little bit more research.
Well, that's done.
And Annie's already done
You were just doing the
that.
architect.
You were just
Right.
doing that. So
The Woodard home, the one that Marguerite, the daughter got, they gutted the original house.
Okay.
Since that's Woodard moved in 1939, his
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah.
So is that written up so I could add it to the,
I forwarded to you.
you did, okay, thanks.
You said that house is 1939 built?
When it was moved,
Oh,
it was a chunk of the original Woodard home was moved to make a home for the daughter, Marguerite, which is Marguerite's, the street Marguerite, Ella, and, I think that there's 2 more that were named after their Woodard's children,
interesting.
yeah. So they just hauled it over there and I don't know what happened. I guess, I wonder if the original was demolished. But yeah, that's all in the description.
So I can, yeah, Alex, if you're interested, I can give you a copy
I'm
of
interested.
Yeah, of course you're interested. So this is what Annie's already written up. So we were just waiting for that property description to fill out
Yeah,
the form, and then Joseph can look over everything, sign it, and submit it to the city. Bridget, I'll go over with you, once something comes in to the city, what the clerk has to do, or the planner, to then forward it on to us for review.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's
I'm
good.
getting kids.
You're good?
So probably nothing historic district signs. We're still, as one of the things that
No, was I going to,
we're working on.
was I going to provide designs? Is that the next step?
I don't remember. I'll go back. I'm just keeping on the list. so
Yes,
we
I saw you
review,
emailed me the actual street signs. Or I'm sorry, the trail signs.
the trail sign.
Yes,
they're
you emailed
cities.
me the
Yeah.
contact. I
Striper.
will get to that during a less busy month.
And that's also something that once we get the designs, we just give it to City Public Works and they'll go out to sign companies and everything.
Yep.
But you can follow through with whoever
Yeah,
you
I'll,
decide.
as a subcontractor designer, I like to share the files with the printers
Yeah,
versus.
but they'll have to do all the
Yeah,
billing
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some Millwood Trail signage, working on those. For the 100-year recognition update.
Which two got sent out?
Pardon?
Which two got sent out already?
I haven't sent the letter out.
Oh, okay.
I sent a draft to you and I was hoping that you put your eyes on it.
I will. I'll go look for it.
And I did this a couple of weeks ago, so if I need to send it to you again,
Okay, I'll find it, I'm sure.
okay. But yeah, I just wanted someone else to look at it.
Okay.
But that might also be a great thing to do for May, that I can add some verbiage about May's historic preservation. You live in a 100-year
Yeah,
structure, please put this decal in your window proudly
yeah,
to designate this as we prepare for the centennial.
yeah, we have.
We
quite a few
still
of them.
have,
Working on it.
yeah, we probably still have a stack.
Stack, so now we just need the addresses of the 100-year-old
Okay.
homes,
And
which Vicky gave us.
Vicky
right?
gave me for the contributing properties in the historic district, so I looked at the dates
Okay.
and there are only 10 residences. And I think 4 businesses that might qualify.
Oh,
I think there were less than 14
So we're gonna just send the decal in the letter.
in the letter.
Just send it.
Just send
put
it and say,
up.
put
You
it
don't
up.
have to do a thing, just stick it in your window.
Yeah, and if you wanted to do something, take a picture of it and
Yeah.
send it in
Well,
and
that'd
we'll
be
put it
good.
on our
Yes,
website.
We'll do that, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that as soon as I get home.
Okay, and if you didn't get it or if it went to junk, I'm happy to send it again.
picture of those houses yourself.
Yeah,
That's good.
like tell the owners to do that?
Hmm?
Tell the owners to take a picture of the,
Or we should go around together.
yeah,
Oh, if we see the property
Yeah.
with this,
Yeah.
because we do have a list of all the properties that have already requested and received the decal,
Okay.
so, yeah. We're gonna skip, thank you, there it is. For G, we'll table G, the Main Street program update for now. Euclid property update, I think I told you I was gonna reach out to Amy, our planner, Amanda, thank you, I knew it started with an A. And she said that because of a change in the architect and since it was proposed the year before last,
You know what that is? It's like just down the street from, it's a big empty lot. All the structures were demolished, like last
Mhm,
November over
mhm.
Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
8921 East Euclid.
Yeah, so just down from your dad's
Yeah.
office, yeah. So,
So the project was temporarily on hold so they could address some comments from the building review and possibly add an additional residential unit. But they also had a change in the lead architect, which has delayed the progress.
Is that the owner is the fellow who owns my
Yeah,
dad's
Conrad,
office?
yeah.
Conrad. Okay.
so, well, we saw a version of that, of the proposed drawing, didn't we, like a couple of months ago?
Yes.
Somewhere, I know I saw it, it was 2 stories at that
Oh,
point.
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So 2,
Yeah.
oh, so that's 3
This is the
stories?
3-story, but I think that was the comment that 3 would be higher than anything else, so they were going to go back and maybe look at changes, but nothing is happening yet because of
Cause they're waiting for a new architect.
a new architect, lead architect. But it's on Amanda's radar now that we're interested in hearing about it, so I think if something comes to the planner, then she will probably share that with us.
That's good.
And she said that Conrad would probably be open to recognizing the former post office there in
Sure.
some way. So when that gets to that point, we could have conversations with him about how to put a sign or a picture in the lobby or something that would designate that spot as being significant, even though it's a new building.
You know, I just had an idea that like up where the Sugar Bowl used to be and where it was Mellow Monkey now, or the yoga studio or whatever, the Irish dance studio. What if we, not a plaque, but like some way to have like one of those old pictures of what everything was, and just see if they could install it on the building, like a laminated, like a, not like on the trail, but just something to show what this is what it used to look like.
Yeah.
Like a then and now or something that would just,
That they, you know, wouldn't
What the
interfere with
business
their
was
business.
beforehand.
Yeah, there've been a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, the oldest business was the Sugar Bowl, and then there was a couple other little shops in there.
Well,
little
there was a
markets.
doctor's office right there next to it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See, this is great.
yeah.
Well, for the 100th, that would be
Yeah,
good
that
with a
would be
little
good.
paragraph or something
Yeah.
about, yeah.
Like a little,
Mhm.
something that couldn't be messed with, you know, that'd be adhered to the building. That'd be kind of cool. Kind of like in, you know how Yokes had those big, in Sam's Market or whatever, had those big photos.
Yes.
But that's indoors where no one could get to them. I'm sure they'd be vandalized. So we didn't, you know, have some other secure way. But yeah, just some way to connect the present building to the original.
All along. All the
Yeah.
businesses there.
Yeah. Would you be amenable to that, to have a photo of whatever the historic was? That was a market, right?
Well, I was just thinking about the picture that was on the calendar last month of the front of my building. Would be
Yeah,
awesome to have just like
Yeah.
blown up
Yeah.
poster size.
yeah.
Yeah, those pictures to make them available
Bobby,
to
yeah.
business owners if they want.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a point of interest for most of the business owners down through there,
Really.
homeowners alike.
Yeah, so just put it on the list.
Going to item I, change ordinance per the Northwest Vernacular. So we did have a grant from Northwest Vernacular that helped create the forms to put properties on the local register and all the steps that we need to take to legally place properties on that register, things like that. So one thing that they also left was a memo of possible changes to our city ordinances that would spell out exactly what the voting percentage would be to create a local district.
That'd be good.
And not that it has to be 100%, which is almost implied in our current ordinances, that everybody inside that district would have to go along with it. We can change that to like, say, 50% plus one, or something.
60.
Yeah, so I did talk to Mayor Beasy about what it would take, would the administration be amenable to us changing the ordinance? Her thoughts were the city council would want to see anything go through the planning commission first.
Okay.
So she recommended that I talk to the chair, Mike Ankeny of the planning commission, to see if they would be open to it. And that could be a start, and then we could walk through those steps.
We could go talk to them like at a meeting.
Yep, we can go to the planning commission, and even get on the agenda and
Yes,
talk
get on
about
the
it,
agenda.
or
Sign up.
something like that.
We could be like public comments. I just thought of another revision to the minutes. I think it said Barber has resigned instead of Barbara. Do we need to like have an official unmotion?
Oh, So under action item A, 4A, reported Commissioner Barbara St. Clair's resignation.
Yeah, that was it.
I don't think we're just, that's included in the amendments that we
Okay,
approved for.
thank you.
I noted it.
Thanks.
Again, I know people need to take off here soon, so commissioner comments, I'll just start, tomorrow at 5 o'clock in City Hall, there is training for open meetings. And this is something that's required of all counselors or commissioners to go through at least once every 4 years or so. So go through this training, I think you and Colleen went through it a couple of years ago, I know Annie and I have been through it. Everybody's welcome to go through it again, just so that we know that we can't have a quorum meet outside posted open meeting, or it has to be, posted as an open meeting. So those are things that we've been trying to be careful about in the Main Street meetings and things like that. So if it's something anybody would like to come to that training as a refresher, I encourage you to do that. I know Ann, as a new commissioner, if you can go through that training, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. even
What
though
time
you're,
is it?
5 o'clock.
Tomorrow.
Is there snacks or anything included?
Any
I
enticements?
don't know, but I can
Water.
see.
And I know in past trainings, they've also had a photographer available to take a picture of new council members and commissioners to update the website. So I don't know if there's someone that would be able to do that so that Anne could be,
Yeah, I have not.
get a headshot if you're here.
If I'm here, yeah.
I have not heard of any talks about that at the moment.
It's short notice, I know,
What,
but
what we have done is if you have a professional photo, you can send it in and I can upload it to the website. But if you don't have one recently, then, the last few years or so.
Been out of the professional line.
so that's something that we'll need to work on.
Yeah,
is
okay,
getting
we'll get it later.
Okay.
over her. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, so next meeting. Colleen expressed that 2 o'clock is difficult for you or both of you to be at a meeting?
At the same time, I mean, like today's an example, one of us kind of has to make sure we're ready for kids to be out of school, so.
So it's the 2 o'clock that's problematic. Would like 1 o'clock?
So even 1:30 might be a little bit easier, just to have that little bit of time, but 1 o'clock would probably be perfect.
I don't know how
That's
that
fine. That's
impacts.
fine.
And with that,
Fine.
so should we just
1 o'clock.
set it 1 o'clock on Monday,
The 13th. Yeah, it's also the 13th.
is it the 13th?
Monday, no, it's 11th. Right? No, the 13th is a Wednesday, because I just made an appointment for that.
So must be May 12th then.
This is Monday. right?
May
Yeah,
11th.
this is Monday,
Looks like May 11th.
May
Yes,
11th.
May 11th.
Okay. I do have a comment, it's not official, anything to do with Millwood. I signed up for them to do the Mother's Day tour in Brown's Edition. And like last year, I did it for Millwood, and basically all it involved was standing in Vicky's kitchen going, "Welcome to the kitchen." And they would pass through, and they would go, to the next thing and the next thing. So I'm gonna do some house in Brown's Edition, I'm not even sure which one it is, but then if you volunteer, you get to go through the other houses for free.
Oh,
So I'm looking forward to it.
okay, that should be fun.
It should be fun, yeah.
There's some great properties in
Yeah.
Brown's Edition.
Welcome to the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, people are they're not listening to you
No,
anymore, which I
no.
took the pressure
Yeah.
off. The thing that was the most exciting for people was they made, in the Rosebush house, they kept all the rod and tube, or whatever it's called, wiring, all the end things. So the whole house, of course, is upgraded with the electricity, but all the electricians and other people would come by and say, that's just what grandma had in her house. So it was really fun. It was surprising that that was so interesting to people, the guts of the house, you know, they
Mhm.
wanted to see that. It was cool.
All right, well, let's schedule our May 11th meeting at 1 PM.
1 PM.
And Bridget, if it's possible to check with Brian, if you see Brian, if this needs to be a special meeting or if it could still be a regular meeting, but just because it's an hour different, do we have to change an ordinance or anything?
I have a note down, so I'll check with Shauna and Brian.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, if there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion to.
Out of curiosity, the packet that I was just looking at that you put together for the Meridon Woodard House, is that something I can share with him, or should we just wait until we sort of get a compilation together of everything and then?
Yeah, so Annie's been working with him on this, and
Okay.
when she incorporates your section,
So he has
Then-
sort of seen that stuff then.
He gave me the photo and this handwritten Seth Woodard letter. And I sat and talked to him about it. So, but I sent him a copy of that, like, basically that. But I haven't heard from him, you know, if he opened the email or what. So,
He seems like he stays pretty busy, so he may not have gotten to it yet.
right.
but yeah, she'll just put in this, like the narrative physical description, what you
Joseph
provide,
Meridon,
and then he
Joseph
can look
Some
at it.
speculations, not having.
You'd
no
recognize him, I bet, if you go to
history,
the farmer's market.
Yeah.
'Cause
so.
He always wears kind of a
But
straw hat, and he's got
yeah,
a
he'll
long,
have to-
long curly gray
okay.
hair.
Sign it
I
and
mean,
then
yeah.
turn it in,
Okay.
and the clerk
He's a
will
very
have it.
nice man.
I'll go over it with you,
Okay,
but
perfect.
not today. I'll make an appointment with you and
Okay.
sit down when we get closer to getting this, him getting ready to submit it.
Okay, we can make it happen.
All right. Do I have a motion to
Oh.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.